CSIS 1430 is filmed before a live studio audience.
Okay, let's make shapes. The first one is a really simple one. It's kind of fun and easy. Let's just make a div here, and we'll just attack the div directly. And we're going to put a border on it. We're going to do 4 separate borders though. So border, of 200, and we'll make the height the same. And now we have this nice 200 by 200 box. But I want you to look at the borders where they come together. Okay, look at those. You see how they're beveled together in the corners? See that? So let's make those a little bit wider. I'm going to override the border width right here by setting it to 55. That'll override everything above it. So it'll change all those 5s to 55 basically. All right? See what's happening here? As you get bigger. Now what if that content on the inside gets smaller? Like if it's 20 pixels. Now if that was all just one color, right? If I just did border color and it was all black, that's kind of what you expected to see, right? Just a big fat 55 pixel border around a little 20 pixel box, right? Or if we kept that at 5, that's what you'd expect, right? All right, so let's make it back to 55 and don't override the color and go back to this colorful business here. It's still the same thing, but just each border is a different color. However, what if I get rid of the height completely and I set it to 0 and the width to 0? They all come together, and if you look real close, there's a little white dot in there. It's teeny, but it's there, okay? And at the size I had, you can kind of see it better there than when I scrolled up. But there's a little white dot in there, okay? Well, this is just a border that has no content in it, no size, right? But because we use different colors to look at it, if we hid all those except for green, I have a triangle, right? If I could hide those 3 borders, or if I hid everything but the pink, I have an upside down triangle, and so on. So how do you hide it? Well, you can set the color to everything, border color to transparent. That'll hide everything, right? But then we'll go back and re-override border bottom color and set it back to green or whatever we had, right? And now you got a triangle, okay? Now this code is like over the top complicated, but to really make a triangle you don't need all this. I just did that to show you how it works. I'll show you how to do it the simpler way, but I want to make sure you understand the idea. So now we're only showing, I mean the whole square is there, they're just invisible, right? So to prove that point, I can make the border top color green instead, and I'm going to show that part of it, right? Or I can make the border left color green, and it'll show the one on the left, and so forth, okay? Well, the truth is, all you need to do is set all of your borders. So let's just do one big thing here. We'll say border, 55 pixels, solid, transparent. Right? So it's completely invisible at the moment. And then just set the border left color to green. That's it. Right? And there you go. It doesn't change. So let's change it to right so we can see that it is working. That's it. Yeah, so just those 2 lines of code. And you also need this. The width and height have to be set to 0. Okay? But that's it. And that gives you a nice little triangle. Now you can move it around, and if maybe you stack a couple divs on top of each other, you got a Christmas tree, right? A couple triangles on top of each other. Or if you have triangles that are pointing to the left or the right, a couple in a row, you have like a fast forward button or a rewind button looking thing, right? Lots of different things you could do with that. In your little boxes assignment, a lot of people have used that idea for the roof of a house, okay? You could also do this. Border left. So I got like a bow tie, right? Or I could switch that to top and bottom, and now we got an hourglass or something, right? Lots of different things you can do. You can imagine you could probably take this and make a fish, right? That's like the fish tail, and if you get an oval shape or something around it, you can make something like a fish. So there's lots of things you could do. You can make stylized trees with just one triangle and a stick on it, right? Just a skinny brown stick, a div that's, maybe 20 pixels wide or something below it. And of course, if you make the height, or sorry, not the height, but the border bigger, like 100, that changes it a little bit, makes it a little bit bigger, okay? And you can mess around with the different properties to change the way it looks. Anyway, you can have fun with that, okay? So I'm gonna just show you what I think you're saying, and then that will hopefully answer the question. So if right now, I just have one div here. So let's put a div class equals outer, and we'll just close that here. And we'll call this inner div class equals roof, okay? And then here, well, that's just our roof, okay? So far nothing should change, okay? But if I put a background color on outer, background, oh my gosh, I did it, I spelled it right. We'll do light blue, I think that's a color. Now refresh, so the question, if I understood it correctly, and I think I did, yeah, the question is, will I be able to see through the rest of the box? Because the box is there. But yeah, we made those colors transparent, which means they're 100% see-through, which is why you can see the lavender, or that blue color here and here, because those are transparent. The moment I put some sort of color on them, left, then now I can't see that part of it, right? But I can still see the other part of it. By the way, you could take this and stick another div to its left of it and make it look like a flag, right? Lots of cool things you can do there. Okay, other questions? Okay, here comes the funnest part of this whole thing. We've seen border radius, right? We've already messed with that, but it's way more powerful than you think, okay? Border radius can do a lot of really cool things. So let's start off simple. Let's just get back to one div here. I'll leave it class outer, that's fine. I'll just target that directly. And let's give it a width of 200 and a height. There we go, nice little box there. Let's move it away from the edge of the screen. We'll do like a big one here, 200 pixels, put it near the center there. Okay, so there's a simple box. We've already looked at this idea that I could round the corners, right? I could go border radius of like 20 pixels, and you get this effect, right? I want to make sure you understand exactly what's happening there. So I've got this little PowerPoint thing I put together for you. So the first thing I want to point out is the sort of notation of the way this stuff works. So you can see the red at the top there, that's TL for top left, top right, bottom left, okay. Well, what we've done is we've used this version of it so far. We did border radius all, which means we said border radius, what did we say, 20 pixels? So what that means is apply it to the top left, and bottom left, okay? We could, if we want, do them individually, and it goes in that order there. Top left, right, bottom left. So I could put different numbers for each of those four. You can also do this, where I could put two numbers, and the two numbers will be those red corners for the first number, and the second number would be the green corners. Dig it? And we'll do an example in a minute. But the real thing I want to show you is this right here. Now in our code we use 20 pixels, but let's just say we use 10 pixels, that's fine. What I want to make sure you understand here, just focus on the red lines only. Ignore the green dotted lines, the red lines. Notice the very first red line is at the very top of the square. And then the next line is 10 pixels down from the top. Now the proportion may be wonky with the actual square that's in the PowerPoint, but it'll be proper in your CSS. So in other words, from the top of the square to this point right here is 10 pixels, if we chose 10 to be our border radius. And also, now look at the green lines. From the green edge to this point right here is also 10 pixels. And so the CSS effectively makes a point in those two spots and then builds an arc between them, right? That's what's going on. It does that on all four of the corners. Okay, does that make sense? So in our case, we made the arc 20 instead of 10, and the arc's not 20 or 10, it's the points, it's 10 pixels down onto the square, and then you make an arc between the 2 points. Okay, so if we understand that, then this can help us wrap our heads around some cool ideas here. So here's our box, and here's our code. If I give a border radius of, say, 50%, okay, what this does is it's going to go down 50% of the width and 50% of the height, and then make an arc between the two. What's that going to do? It's going to make a circle, right? If you look at this, from here to here, that distance from the top red line to the bottom red line is 50%. And from the edge here to this point right here is 50%. And that will be the same all the way through. I'm not going to bother drawing it all the way through, but every point, all the borders went to 50%, and then we drew an arc between them. Okay. Well, what's cool about this, we go back to the page here, and then we go to the code. If the width were, for example, 400, you get something like this, right? Because 50% of the width is different than 50% of the height, because the height was 200, so that goes down 100 pixels, right? And then the width goes over 200 pixels, because that's half of the width. So that's pretty cool. But remember, we can do this other syntax that we saw here, where I can do each one individually. So let's try that out. So for example, I can go top left of 20 pixels, top right of 50 pixels, bottom right of 90 pixels, and bottom left of 30. So now I refresh it, and you get some sort of weird shape, right? But I want to make sure that this is computing here, because the next thing we're going to look at is going to mess with your head. So again, what were our numbers? They were 20, 50, 90, 30. Okay, 20, 50, 90, 30. So 20 pixels down from the top is right there, and 20 pixels over from the left is right there. And then it drew an arc between them. And then what was the next one? 50? So it went from the edge to 50, and from the top to 50. And so you ultimately end up with a point right there and a point right there, and then it draws an arc between them, right? Then we had 90 over here, I believe. So this point is 90 from right there, and this point is 90 from right there. Dig it? Then draw an arc between them, and then the same thing, that point's 30 and 30, draw the arc. Okay, hoping that's sunk into your brains, because we're gonna mess with it. Notice what's happening there. It's doing it both vertically and horizontally, right? Whenever we apply it to a particular corner, it's assuming that what we meant was 20 pixels vertical and 20 pixels horizontal, right? You don't have to do that though. You can choose to have the vertical and the horizontal be different. So let's go back to this where we say just 30 pixels all around. Okay, let's just look at that. That's 30 pixels all around. And again, it's 30 pixels down from the top and 30 pixels over from the left, and it's that way on every corner. But I can do this where I say slash 90 pixels. What this means is go horizontally over 30 pixels, but when you go vertically, when you go down 90, right? And it's applying that to every corner, so you get sort of an odd shape like this, okay? In the PowerPoint, I have this kind of mapped out too again. What's happening is the first number was 30, and then again, I'm using this syntax still, right? What I'm really doing is that, but I'm also going slash all again. And I want you to apply this number to the horizontal and this number to the vertical. And so the first number was 30 in our code, which meant go over horizontally from the edge of the square over 30 pixels, which puts a point right there. And then same thing on each one. Go over 30 from the edge, go over 30 from the edge, and over 30 from the edge, right? And then go down 90, which is where that red line sort of in the middle is. So starting at this red line here, we go down 90 pixels, and that puts a point right there. And then we go down 90 pixels, puts a point right there, and we go up 90 pixels, puts a point there, and we go up, and it puts a point there. And then draw an arc between each of those. And that's how you get that arc there, okay? So you can make some crazy shapes with this. You can do a lot of different things. So let's go back to something where we apply maybe 25% to the top left, 75% to the top right, 63% to the bottom right, and I don't know, 18% to the bottom left. All right, let's just start there, see what that looks like. All right, that's cool. Looks like a bullet, right? That was an accident, but that's what it looks like, okay? Okay, well, that's because the top left is going 25 down, 25 over. All right, let's make this back to a square and see what it looks like. All right, now it looks like a sideways gumdrop or something. Jujube. Now, on the top left there, it's being pushed down and over 25%. Top right, down and over 75. Bottom right, down and up, or up and over 63. And then the other one, 18. But if I do our little slash trick here, I can put a slash here and then put all the vertical numbers. Those ones on the left will become the horizontals, ones on the right will become the vertical. So let's go 75%, which is going to pair up with this 25 right here. And we'll do like 9%, which is going to pair up with this 75. And then we'll do 30%, which will pair up with the 63. And then for the other one, we'll do 29%. I don't know, making stuff up here. But now this means for the top left, you're going to go 25% over horizontally and 75% down vertically. And then for the top right, 75 and 9 and so forth down the line. And you get this weird shape. Okay? There's a really cool tool right here where you can drag. All right? Drag and try to make the shape you want. And so if you kind of know roughly what you're looking for, drag around. I'm just making stuff up, I don't know. Looks good to me. Click copy right here. And there you go, it gives you the code. And so now if we put that on our CSS here, border radius, well, I guess we have to put it there. It just gives us the numbers magically, and we just go refresh our page now, which is here, and we'll get that weird shape. Pretty cool. So you can use that to create some really cool stuff. Take that along with positioning and rotating like we looked at the other day. So for example, let's try something wonky here. We got 5 minutes, let's mess around. Let's take this box, we'll get rid of the radius. It's a 200 by 200 box. And now let's do transform, rotate. I think we want to go, what, 90 degrees? Is that what I'm thinking? And we get, did I do that wrong? Oh, yeah, 45 degrees, sorry. Know your trigonometry, Jeff. There we go. So now you have a diamond shape, right? Okay. So if I were to do my little triangle trick, right, that would end up giving me a triangle that is pointing in a weird direction. Like I'd have a triangle that's kind of pointing like that or something, right? The red part would be the triangle, or depending on where I made it, right? But imagine if I rotated another div and laid it on top of that, right? And rotated another div at the same sort of 45-degree angle. And so I end up with, or just a regular div that's not rotated, I should say, right? It's the same size. You get something like that. You have sort of a star-looking thing. And then you start messing with the border radiuses and shaping things, and you can get sort of a rounded star look or whatever. All kinds of cool things you could do with this, okay? This can be very useful in your little boxes assignment, right? If you haven't done that already. Okay, the one last thing I want to show you is this. Well, let's go back. All right, so we're back to this, and we just have this nice rounded corner thing. But we can target the corners individually, right? So there's this property, we have border top left radius, and we have border top right, border bottom left, and bottom right, right? So we're gonna do, say, 50% just on the top left, okay? And now we get that just on the top left because that's where we wanted to apply it. But we can also do the trick where we don't go 50% on horizontal and vertical. We can do 50% horizontal and say 10% on the vertical, and you get this weird effect, right? So if we just turn off these guys here so we can see how it's only affecting the top left right there, just that one little weird edge. So you can make all kinds of really cool shapes with this. And in fact, I'm going to show you a project from a student. His little boxes assignment is this, Pac-Man. Now it doesn't function, right? But everything except for the word ready is done with divs being reshaped. Now, back then, text was allowed. Now it's not. If you want text, you got to build it with divs, right? That's the way I do the assignment now. But those ghosts, those are divs. And so what they are is this. Just real quick, we can do border top radius like this. Or sorry, border radius like this. And we can do 50% for the top left, 50% for the top right, and 0 and 0. And you'll get roughly the shape we're looking for, right? Like the ghost. And then that's exactly what's going on here, except for he made some really small triangles that are black and put them on top, on the bottom there. And then for the eyeballs, those are 0. They're just round, 100, 50% round. And so are the pupils. And they're positioned using percentages. So they're the position, instead of saying top equals 5 pixels, it's top equals -4% or something like that. And so that's how it stays in that spot when you scale it up. The Pac-Man is just a circle with a triangle on it, right? Now, and then these divs are the same thing. They're just borders and shapes and positions. The reason I have you do that assignment is not because in the real world you're ever going to do this. You'll never do this, right? CSS wasn't meant to do this. But it's proof of how powerful it is, and if you can do this, then you are a master of CSS. And you can build anything with CSS. You can make your site look however you want. All right, any questions about this?